my dears.
What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Monday and welcome to another Ryno's Rants. We are a few days removed from Kwesi Adofo-Mensah cooking up some tasty moves last Friday. Of course, if you joined us on Friday's show, Brunswick and I talked about the trade that Kwesi swung with the Houston Texans, sending pick 42, pick 188, and a 2025 second-round pick to the Houston Texans in order to get pick 23 and pick 232 in the 2024 draft. Of course, speculation and everything run rampant ever since then. You know, where are the Vikings trying to move up? You know, obviously looking at a quarterback. You know, do you go to the Chargers at 5? Do you go Arizona at 4? The loudest spot seems to have been the New England Patriots at pick 3. Even some discussions, and supposedly ESPN said this the other day. I didn't see it, but Brunswick had said that he had seen it, about the Vikings working diligently with the Washington Commanders at pick 2. So my guess is, of course, phone calls are being made at all of those spots. I would guess there was even a phone call made to Ryan Poles in Chicago just to see, for shits and giggles, what kind of deal it would take to get up to number 1. And I'm guessing the conversation didn't last very long there. But, you know, there's a lot of moving parts going into this. Now, of course, Vikings social media, Twitter, X, all that fun stuff. One of the best rumors I have heard was that the Vikings are going to stand pat at pick 11 and just trade it up to pick 23 so that they could take Bo Nix or Michael Penix down at pick 23 and then take a defender at pick 11. I will guarantee you that is not the reasoning behind the move that Kwesi made last Friday. Because, for one, there is no guarantee that Bo Nix and or Michael Penix will even be available at pick 23. The assumption is at least one of them would be, but if that was your move that you were going to make, you would be making that on draft night, not 5-6 weeks ahead of time, because nothing is, you make that move already, and if somebody's sitting there at the back or the beginning of the second round or back into the first that wants a quarterback, they can jump you and you're already screwed there. But a bunch of people in the chat already. Good evening, everybody. GMAC, Doc Proto, In the Zone, Jer, everybody. Robert, good evening, welcome, and thank you for joining once again. But yeah, that I'm going to put it this way on that latest rumor about those, you know, staying at 11 and 23. If we are picking at 11 and 23, something went horribly, horribly wrong, and we're in trouble. So don't really need to put too much stock into that. But then, of course, more rumors rolling around. Thinking we're hooks, both first-round picks. You're delusional, yeah. Only way to do it, trade is third-round pick. Yeah, I mean, there's. I think you could get to pick 4 or pick 5 with the 2 number 1s that we have this year. 5 for sure. And if you look at the Rich Hill draft chart, Jimmy Johnson stuff, and all that other happy jazz, the 2 number 1 picks that we have, 11 and 23, would get is a slight overpay, but it would get you with that quarterback premium and whatnot to pick 4 with Arizona. So it's likely we could make that deal depending upon if anybody else is calling and, that kind of stuff. To get to number 3, and 2, definitely, you're going to probably have to give up next year's number 1 as well. Maybe getting by, adding a third, the 2 number 1s this year and 3rd rounder next year, which leads to another very, very interesting rumor. Doc would like to avoid that if we could, position to get something done without giving up next year's first. I agree. If you have to give it up to go get, JJ or Drake May or who are looking up front, then you do it. I mean, I think Kwesi's plan was to get up to a point where we don't have to give up next year's number 1 pick, but they're going to do it if they need to because they're going to want to get their guy. Like I said, whether that's Drake May, whether it's Jay Daniels, whether it's JJ McCarthy, they're going to go get him because if you don't, then I know they're saying that they're intrigued by Sam Darnold and this and everything else. I mean, Sam Darnold he's had a raw deal in Carolina and with the Jets, but I'm not myself personally, I wouldn't do it. And I know Kwesi is not going to stake his career on hoping that they can catch lightning in a bottle with Sam Darnold. Now, if it's their guy, you do it. That's absolutely correct. A lot of teams are desperate for a quarterback. We have to outbid them. That's just the thing. The Giants at 6 are our first true roadblock, I think, because everything I've been hearing is if JJ McCarthy is there at 6, the Giants will take him. So we need to get ahead. Excuse me. Need to get ahead of the Giants in order to make sure we get one of the big 4 quarterbacks. Who is Sam Bradford 2.0, Josh? Peyton is a snake in Denver. He could try to jump us. They could, but Denver has freely admitted they don't have the draft capital to outbid the Vikings on this. Now the Vikings have that other first-round pick this year. Sam Darnold. I mean, I don't. Sam Darnold doesn't have the knees made of balsa wood like Sam Bradford did, but I see your point on it. He's fine for us. Start a few games if the rookie's not ready and stuff. But I don't see this regime staking their jobs on hoping that Sam Darnold pans out. And if you miss out on a quarterback this year, next year's quarterback class sucks. I mean, you basically have Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, and maybe somebody else. I mean, that's about it. It's nowhere near the class that this year's group is. Yeah, I don't think the Vikings are going to do what the Vikings have always done here. And, that would be, go grab every Band-Aid off the shelf that you can find and just toss it at the position instead of going and getting who you want. I fully believe that Kwesi is going to do everything in his power to go get the quarterback that they want. Hope our quarterback room has 2 number 2 overall picks next season. Who would the other number 2 pick be? Sam Darnold went 3rd to when the Jets drafted him. So next rumor I heard here that within the last couple of days, since yesterday because this happened yesterday. The Patriots signed former Vikings wide receiver KJ Osborne to a 1-year, $4 million contract on Sunday, which by doing so locks the Vikings into getting 2 third-round comp picks next year. I'm not going to do that, G-Mac. Because for the loss of Kirk Cousins and for the loss of Danielle Hunter, we are now in line to get 2 third-round compensatory picks next year, provided we don't sign anybody between now and the 29th of April, I believe it is. Udo went to New Orleans. We might get a pick if he signed for more than $3 million. I think the number is $4 million, Ant, but I could be wrong on that. But the interesting rumor and conspiracy theory type tinfoil hat shit that I heard about this KJ Osborne deal was that Kwesi and the Patriots have this wink nod deal in place where with KJ Osborne signing for $4 million, that locked us in to get the 2 compensatory picks. So the Vikings would then, in turn, take our original third-round pick, wherever that falls, package it with the 2 first rounds from this year to move up to pick 3 with New England. So is that true? Is that just bullshit? I don't know. It's possible. But then, I start, good evening, Dan. Start here sitting, thinking about this a little bit. People say, well, Kwesi's going to move up as soon as possible. I think he wants to move up as soon as possible. Brian, okay, we'll address this one before I move on to the next thing. We've signed 2 edge guys for one, and at Penix at 23. The thing of it is, we don't know if Penix is going to be there or not at that point in time. If you were going to do that, you wouldn't have traded up already. But also with this regime, and we showed it last year, we passed on Will Levis like 3 times. They are not going to take a quarterback just because they need a quarterback, a la what Rick Spielman did when he drafted Christian Ponder. They're going to take their guy, or they're going to have an alternative plan. They may take a flyer, if they don't get their guy out of the top 4 and they don't like Bo Nix or Penix or miss out on those guys, I could see him taking a flyer in the, somewhere in the 4th round if a Spencer Rattler still sitting around there, or a Michael Pratt from Tulane or something like that. But they're not going to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. It's going to be their guy, or it's not going to be a high pick. But the reason why that draft or that trade was made on Friday was to package picks and move up. It was not made to stay put at 11 and 23 and draft there. Like I opened the show with, if we are picking at 11 and 23, something went seriously wrong in the negotiations to get up into the top 5. But anyway, back to the this is their future. Absolutely correct, Robert. This is what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and were hired for, is for that long-term vision. And they're not going to stake their careers on a Band-Aid quarterback that has not proven that he can be really much of anything anyplace else. Draft day trade because New England wants to know what quarterback is available. That was my next point I was just going to get to, Dan, so thank you for rolling into that segue. From the rumor mill and everything I have heard, New England likes Jaden Daniels a lot, but they're not necessarily sold on Drake May. So if the Washington Commanders take Jaden Daniels at pick 2, which the steam is building that they are, he fits that style of offense that Cliff Kingsbury, who's the offensive coordinator in Washington, likes to run. I could see, I think Jaden Daniels would be a very good fit there. Plus, they've already got Marcus Mariota, who is their bridge / backup guy. More of a similar playing style to Jaden Daniels than to a Drake May. So I think the Commanders are going to go with Jaden Daniels unless they pull off a trade up with Chicago to get Caleb Williams, and then Chicago rolls back in at 2 and takes a quarterback there. I could see them taking Drake May if they make that swap. I hope that's not how it happens, but it would be advantageous for us for Caleb Williams to go to the Bears, Jaden Daniels to go to Washington, meaning New England would be more ready to jump out of that spot, where then the Vikings move up and you take Drake May. Now, I've heard the Vikings, the word I heard was the Vikings adore Drake May, so he could very well be their target. That could be smoke. Just announced here this afternoon. Okay, Michigan's Pro Day is coming up on the 22nd. The Vikings are going to have a full contingent at that Pro Day, and then the next day or within the next couple of days after that, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are flying up to Ann Arbor to have a private workout / meeting with JJ McCarthy. So it's going to be one of those two. I fully believe it. Now, if something happens and those two go before we can pick and Jaden Daniels is there, I think they would take Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels has fans within the Vikings organization. I don't think he's the best fit for Kevin O'Connell's offense, and we've talked about this a ton in the past. But I think they would take him if he's there and their other two guys aren't. I think they like all four of these top 4 quarterbacks, just, however they're tiered. But as long as we get McCarthy, but I don't care if we get him at 3 or 5. That's my thing, Dan. People say, well, you can't trade up to 4 to take JJ McCarthy. It doesn't matter if you take JJ McCarthy at 4 or if you take him at 11. If he turns out to be your franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years, the kid's only 21 years old, so he could play for quite a while. If he becomes that franchise quarterback for the next 12 to 10, 12 years and gets you a Super Bowl, nobody is going to care how much money, or picks-wise, how much you spent in picks to go up and get him. Same thing with Drake May. You give up 3 number 1s to move up to number 3 and take Drake May, and he wins you a Super Bowl. Nobody's going to care. But this is the one thing, Doc, with a good point here. Kwesi is really going for it this year. If it fails badly, it may be his job. Yeah, it might be. But this is the one thing. We have been begging for the Vikings to do something like this forever. The Vikings have drafted, in the 63 years that this team has been in existence, we have picked quarterbacks in the first round only 4 times, and none in the top 10. The highest pick quarterback that we have taken in team history is Dante Culpepper, coincidentally at pick 11. Christian Ponder was at pick 12. Tommy Kramer was at pick 29, and Teddy Bridgewater was at pick 32. Those are the only first-round quarterbacks. Hey, Rap, good evening. Good evening, Nick. No risk it, no biscuit. Absolutely, Josh. Can't imagine the pressure JJ's under right now at 21 years of age. But that's the thing, Doc. Under all this pressure, these guys, that you see these kids going through the pre-draft process, everything else, you want to see how these kids handle pressure. That is one of the knocks I've had on Caleb Williams the whole time. I don't think that kid handles adversity all that well, or stress, pressure. We've seen it a couple of times where he had a bad game, and one game he refused to come out and do his post-game press conference. Another game he was standing on the sidelines crying into his mother's shoulder because they lost a game. You got to be a professional about stuff like this. And even if you don't want to go out there and face the media, which, let's face it, the media, a lot of times, all they're out there doing is asking stupid questions, trying to get, some kind of a clip or comment of some sort that means absolutely nothing. But it's part of the process. You got to deal with these guys. But seeing a guy, like J.J. McCarthy, how he handles stuff, how does Drake May handle it? How do any of these guys handle it? I think J.J. McCarthy is a very well-spoken individual. I think he's got that bit of a swagger, that bit of the moxie and the it factor that, I think he can handle this. You look at some of these quarterbacks, and it's not just the top four. So you start looking at, excuse me, how they fared in games against top flight competition. Everybody's performance takes a drop, the tougher the competition you get against. J.J. McCarthy's really did not. It stayed level. Now, granted, again, people are going to throw this out, the J.J. haters, that he didn't throw the ball that much. No, he didn't throw the ball that much. But that was because he didn't have to, because they had a dominant running game. Blake Corum is one of the better running backs in this draft, if not the best. They had a dominant defense. McCarthy didn't even play half of the fourth quarters in the games they played this year because they had the game in hand and they didn't need to. And Robert, I was just going to get to this point here too. When he had to hit the receivers, the kid was money. You look at him on third and longs and it's kind of stuff where they had to throw the football. He was making NFL level throws into these tight windows and into the receiver, and he can throw on a run. He's one of the more accurate quarterbacks on the move, which is something we haven't seen around here in decades. Good evening, Sean. Jonah Williams expected to sign. That would be I know he was in earlier today for a visit interview, whatever it may be. Depth signing on the defensive line. He did, I believe, started all 16 or 17 games last year for the Rams. Only had, I think, had 49 tackles and 2 sacks, so not a ton of production, but it's a body, and I'm guessing he would not be one that's going to count against the comp formula. So ESPN just posted. All right. Thank you for the update. Last drive against Alabama should say it all. Yeah, I mean, I know I heard people say, "Wow, he had some bad throws against Alabama." Every quarterback out there is gonna have bad throws. It's just a certainty. I mean, not everybody's gonna be accurate, perfect all the time. Caleb Williams isn't. Drake May isn't. J.J. McCarthy isn't. Jaden Daniels isn't. Bo Nix isn't. None of these guys are. Do we think the Chargers would trade with us knowing JJ's former coach may have hard feelings toward the Vikings? I think that they would, Doc. Kwesi and Jim Harbaugh are close. I don't think Harbaugh holds any resentment against Kwesi. We all know what happened there. It was one of the minority owners who has a hard-on for Jim Harbaugh for something that happened at Michigan, and he's the one that derailed the Harbaugh to Minnesota. And you think about it, Harbaugh should be thankful that he didn't get this job 2 years ago, because it let him go back to Michigan and win a national championship. Check that box on his resume, that one of the things that, on his bucket list of things he wants to do. He got that done. He jumps back to the NFL because now he wants to win a Super Bowl. Might be wrong. I have a gut feeling he would be the best quarterback of the draft in the end. I wouldn't argue that point with you, Dan. I mean, if you go back and watch some of the stuff earlier in the process, I wasn't a big J.J. McCarthy guy. I wasn't. I believed a lot of the stuff that you see a lot of people posting, about him not being able to throw, having a weak arm, some of this stuff. The kid threw the ball 61 miles an hour at the combine, 1 mile an hour off of the record. I mean, he's got an arm. He's accurate. Does he have holes in his game? Absolutely he does. They all do. None of these guys are going to come in and be a finished product. But anybody coming in to the NFL like we talk before, so many of these young quarterbacks fail because they go to a team that does not have a support system around them, doesn't have weapons, doesn't have crap for an offensive line. And these quarterbacks are drafted to come in and save the franchise, and with nothing around them, they can't. So that's a lot of them flame out that way. Coming into Minnesota, I don't often agree with Colin Cowherd. I don't watch his show all that much because I think he's a blowhard and a shock jock that just is out there trying to get views and clicks. But he made the comment the other day that the Vikings 2A rookie quarterback are like coming into a furnished apartment. Everything is there that you need. All the furniture's there. The appliances are all there. You have Justin Jefferson. You have Jordan Addison. You've got two very good tackles in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill. You've got TJ Hawkinson, who will be back in like a month. He's a tool. Yes, Sean, I agree that he is, but he made a valid point, and whether I like the guy or not, I will. Robert, 60 yards in the air. Yep. I'd have no concerns about J.J. McCarthy's arm. And like I said, I watched a bunch of tape on him last week, and you see that the spots where they needed him to do something, he delivered it. It wasn't it's 4th and 8. I'm going to throw short of the sticks at, a 4-yard check down pass and just hope like hell that my receiver can break free or something. He was finding a receiver past the sticks and trying and moving the chains. It was, it was the kid was money, and Drake May, looking at him, look at how, and Drake May has only started 25 games in college, so he's still very raw. But as good as he is and has been the consensus QB2, QB3 since before last season, he did it at North Carolina without much talent as far as wide receivers and supporting staff goes. So, I mean, that should tell you a lot there about Drake May as well. Jaden Daniels, like I said, I love the dual threat ability there. I like the fact that he can take off and run with it. The thing I don't like necessarily about Daniels is when he goes to take off and breaks out of the pocket, he's tucking the ball and he's running. It's not like a May or a McCarthy where he's still looking downfield trying to make a play while he's flushed out of the pocket and, going out to one side or the other. He's going to tuck the ball and he's going to run. Now, when he does that, he is one of the most electrifying runners that's played the quarterback position in years. I mean, our buddy Drew Bunting over at Vikings Report said that he's in his opinion, he's a better runner than Michael Vick was. So that says something right there as well. Wish we could upgrade at center as well. So do I, GMAC. There is some possibility out there. I think Connor McGovern, I believe, is still available out there, but he had an ACL surgery right about the same time that Brian O'Neill did last year, so he probably is not cleared to play yet, which might work to the Vikings' favor because if they're, signing him would screw with the comp formula. But if he's not going to be able to pass a physical until midsummer anyway, that might be an option. They may, try to draft a center, with whatever they have for remaining picks in the draft this year. Obviously not getting a Jackson Powers Johnson type because he's going to go late first round to early second round. But you've got guys that can be had in that 4th, 5th round. Bo Limmer from Arkansas, Bartleone from Wisconsin, guys like that would fit into their and want JD's leadership skills in Minnesota did more than was expected of him in Michigan. I mean, Dave, better late than never. Glad you're here. The thing with McCarthy also, Jim Harbaugh gushes about this kid, says he's the greatest quarterback to ever play in Michigan, which includes himself, which includes some guy who won 7 Super Bowls. There's been there's been some pretty good quarterbacks to walk through the doors of Ann Arbor, and to be compared among the best, if not the best of all of them, that says something. I fully believe that if the Chargers could get out from underneath Justin Herbert's contract, they would probably move him, and Harbaugh would take J.J. McCarthy. They can't do that because it's like $103 million dead cap they would incur. Upgraded center, take Nix and lay. Riley, I'm not getting started on the Bo Nix thing. Don't. You know how I feel about Bo Nix. Hunter Nosrad, center, Penn State in the 4th round. Dan Feeney played center one season. Yeah, he does have that center guard flexibility. So as it sits right now, I think he's Garrett Bradbury's backup since Schlotman signed elsewhere. I forget where he went, but not that it really matters. Drake Nugent's another one that would be worth a look. No relation to Ted Nugent. I'm not sure if he is or not. They're both, I mean, Michigan, I don't know. Warming to the idea of JJ, just don't love the idea of trading up to get him. Ideally, you wouldn't have to, but you're going to have to. You're absolutely going to have to. And like I mentioned before, even if you trade up to get him and he turns out to be the franchise guy that we've begged for around here since the days of Fran Tarkington, nobody's going to care what you gave up to get him. You can die on that hill. That's fine. I'm not even going on that hill. How everyone seems to feel about Nix. Watch him be the best quarterback out of this class in a few seasons. It's possible. I mean, if I got them all right, I'd be an NFL scout or a general manager someplace and not a podcaster sitting here talking about these guys. But the stuff I saw on Nix, I don't think I don't know that he's going to transfer very well over to the NFL. I just don't. And I would feel more confident trading up to pick 3 and taking J.J. McCarthy at 3 than I would be taking Bo Nix at 11. And that's my honest to God opinion. And I'll die on that hill. Nugent is small. I don't want another small center. I get that. I mean, that's a Powers Johnson would be great. That guy's a house and he can move. I didn't realize this until yesterday or something. I was reading something, and Jackson Powers Johnson started at Oregon as a backup defensive tackle, and they switched him over to center, and now he's the number 1 center in this draft class. McCarthy, you're going to have to trade up to 5. You're going to have to. I agree. Because if he is there at 6, the New York Giants will take him. I am fully confident that they will. And, they're not going to be – they can't get out from underneath Daniel Jones this year either, but they would use Daniel Jones as their bridge quarterback for a year because next year it's way more feasible for them to get out from underneath that. And then J.J. McCarthy would roll in, late this year or in 25. If for some reason he got past the Giants, you're still going to have to deal with getting into a position where Denver could possibly make a jump because Sean Payton likes him. I know I've heard that many places that Sean Payton would like to have him, but they don't think they can get up there. Anybody remember Colt Brennan? Yes, I remember Colt Brennan. Don't know shit myself. Thought we would re-sign Cousins. Joe, good evening. Need to draft May. I think that's Drake May is target number 1, I believe. J.J. McCarthy is 1A or 2, however you want to put it. But we'll see what the Brain Trust sees when they work out McCarthy in the private workout here later this week. Maybe they fall in love with the kid. I mean, by all accounts, the discussions they had at the combine went very well. I think McCarthy wants to be here. The way he talked about working with Kevin O'Connell in the film room at the combine, you could just see it in his voice and stuff that he was excited about it. He went and followed Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on Instagram the other day. If that tells you anything, I don't know. Kirk Banker's breakdown of Nick said pocket presence is really worth a watch. All this quarterback content. Dude does an excellent job of breaking it down, even if he used to be a Packer. Yeah. Bitch, when we drafted age all day, Taylor just had a 1K season. Yeah, we didn't need a running back there, but when somebody like that falls in your lap, it's the same thing with Randy. When Randy Moss fell to us when we drafted him, Justin Jefferson, we got a gift when the Eagles decided Jalen Reagor was a better option than Justin Jefferson. Talk about stats. How did Brennan turn out? And that's the thing, Josh. You got to look at the stats more than just at the top level surface, because, yeah, Bo Nix, his stats are fantastic from last year. But you dig down into those stats and you see a lot of the things that give me pause for thinking he can be the solution at quarterback. 6th shortest depth of target in FBS last year. 54% of his yardage was yard after catch. I mean, he was, so many of his throws were short, and then the receivers take off and get all this yardage afterwards. Peyton likes Nix. Peyton can have Nix, that's fine. We got to save May from the Patriots. Patriots would absolutely ruin the poor dude. I've heard they don't care for May all that much, and I think that we talked about this right off the bat. They like Jaden Daniels, and if Washington takes Daniels, then it's going to make it much more likely that the Patriots trade out of 3, so it would be in our best interest for Washington to take him. Have one of the worst rosters I can remember ever. Played in the WAC. AP and Randy had major upside, became stars, and he had to be scared because of Ponder draft. Absolutely. And that was, one of the arguments that people have had for however long about, take a quarterback early. Do you make this trade up and then you come off you end up with a Christian Ponder? That you may miss on a quarterback. There's no guarantees. But we hired Kwesi and KOC to be the guys that can develop that franchise quarterback and lead this team in a new direction. If we didn't think they were capable of finding that guy and developing him, then we shouldn't have hired him in the first place. We know Rick Spielman couldn't identify and draft a quarterback. He got fired in Miami because he couldn't do it. And then we hired him, and he was here for 16 years. Proved he couldn't do it. We had the Christian Ponder experiment. We had Tavares Jackson, who was more of a Brad Childers thing because Brad was running the show at that point in time. You had, again, Ponder, Teddy Bridgewater, Kellen Mond, and a bunch of these guys that Spielman just took a flyer on in the 7th round or undrafted free agents just to see if he would luck out and find somebody that was worth half a damn. But, I'm gonna give my confidence that Kevin O'Connell, and now bringing in McCown as well, can develop this quarterback, because that's what we hired them to do. And until they prove that they can't do it, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can. I know that's a foreign concept for Minnesota Vikings fans to have faith that the coaching staff can actually develop somebody, but here we are. It's a new day. It's a new direction. And that kind of stuff is, I'm excited about this offense or this offseason so far. It's been a long time since we've been able to make the moves that we made, in the first week of free agency, signing all these guys. It's been a long time. When was the last time you saw a Vikings general manager trade up in the first round for anything? I mean, who was the last one we traded up for? Matt Khalil. We moved one spot. Maybe. I don't remember if there's been one since then, but we were another Rick Spielman. Spielman was trying to move up and draft Justin Fields 3 years ago. The Bears jumped us and we missed out of it, so we traded back and got Darisaw. Time for a new direction with their guys. Yep, Skull Mafia. Good evening, my buddy. Kirk's been gone for a week. Most excited franchise has been in half a decade. Yeah. Defense is getting stronger up front. It absolutely is. I believe we still need defensive tackle, interior defensive line help. We need somebody who can get a consistent pass rush from that spot. And I think, once we decide what we're going to end up needing to do as far as trade package to move up, I think there's some defensive tackles in the mid rounds that probably will be guys that they look at. Never seen it before the draft starts. Yeah, I don't think I have either, Skull Mafia. I can't think of anything. Be aggressive, absolutely. But more into trading down. And that's the thing. Vikings fans have been conditioned to that kind of passive trade back, or just, when it comes to looking for a quarterback, let's just sit here like this and let's see who falls to us, and then we'll take a flyer on him, or we'll just play it safe. This is aggressiveness. I love this. It's nice to see that this team is actually going out and making the moves that they need to do for what they believe will happen to make this team better. It's not, okay, we're just going to do this, we're just going to do that, we'll draft this guy here, we're going to trade back and get 17 7th-round picks so we can shotgun approach this and hope we get maybe one or two of these guys that'll pan out. Fresh idea, absolutely. Picking up Aaron Jones excites me in the run game. It does me too. Aaron Jones has killed the Vikings over his career. And getting him on our side instead of on the opposition side is going to be a bonus. I mean, he's starting to have some injury concerns, but I think if you share the load a little bit between him and Ty Chandler, you're going to keep a little bit of the mileage off the tires there. Plus, you got somebody who's going to have extra incentive for 2 games against Green Bay this year to go out and stick it to them, since they decided that they would go with a younger model than what he's got. So, yeah, and he's a great human being. My sister's a big Packers fan, and when she found out that the Vikings signed Aaron Jones, she was pissed. She's like, he was my favorite player on the team, and now you guys got him. God damn it. So I'm happy with the signing. I like the signing. I like the Van Ginkel's another one of those guys that's, got the high motor. He's going to be the, in around the ball all the time. And I've talked to some Miami Dolphins fans who are absolutely heartbroken that he's gone. He's another one of those really high character, high class guys, like a Harrison Phillips kind of in that area. Great dude, very dedicated to his craft, very dedicated in the community, things like that. He's a great signing, and I think we're going to see big things out of him, and I think fans are going to really like this cat when he starts playing. Vikings haven't drafted a quarterback in the top 10 in my life. I'm 31. The Vikings have not drafted a quarterback in their life, and they are 63. Highest quarterback ever taken by the Vikings was Dante Culpepper at pick 11. Good impact players and great depth pieces. Absolutely. People are throwing pissy fits about, that wide receiver that we signed, Sherfield, the other day. he's a special teamer and a depth guy. He's a good special teams guy. We need to get the roster to 90 players by training camp. So you got some of these guys that you think might have a little something here or there. There's no fault in signing guys for league minimum, $1 million, whatever it is, to bring them in just to see what you got with them. Never having a history. Yep. How could your sister do that to me? My mother is from Wisconsin, and so half of my family is Packers fans, except for my uncle who moved to, or my uncle's family, my cousins on that part, because he moved to Rockford, Illinois right after he got married. So most of my cousins on that part are Bears fans. So it gets a little contentious around the Ryno family tree when football season comes. So Rick, when he traded Teddy and for Dalvin, it's like, yeah, he did move up at the end of the first round and get Teddy. Yeah. But there again, it's the end of the first round thing. I'm talking more in that, making a true impact up early kind of a thing. I can't remember the Vikings ever doing that. Proactive instead of reactive. Absolutely, Chuck. Good evening, by the way. Help team move in a new direction. Not need to be cap strapped finally. That's absolutely true. And next year, right now we're sitting with like the most dead cap in the league for 2024, and we knew that was going to be the case. But in 2025, as it sits right now, we are projected to have $138 million in cap space. That's like fifth or sixth highest in the league. Now, granted, there's ideally going to be a Justin Jefferson extension that comes out of there. Christian Darrisaw is going to need something pretty soon, so that number will come down. But there's going to be plenty of money next year to plug holes, whether it's upgrading offensive line, getting a big name guy on the defensive line, that kind of stuff. So it's incremental improvements. It's not, we can't just throw money at it and go, we're going to go all in 2024 and then we're going to suck for 5 years. No, it's, build, replace the older players with younger players and keep that cycle going. That's how you build a quality team. And Rick Spielman forgot that, or was incapable of doing that the last several years he was here. So we've overpaid for guys who had been productive, and then by the time that new contract was over, their play did not warrant the kind of money that we were giving them. And you don't run into very many guys like Harrison Smith, who now has taken a pay cut 2 years in a row because he wants to stay here and he wants to help the team. And Harrison Smith should be in the Ring of Honor the following season after he retires. Shirtfield's low-key good signing, wide receiver. Could make wide receiver 3. I think Brandon Powell's your wide receiver 3 right now. Jalen Naylor, if he can stay healthy. I mean, they had high hopes for him last year, and he's missed most of the season. I think if he's healthy, he's going to push for that wide receiver 3 as well. 10 years since the team drafted Teddy, yeah. Thanksgiving must suck. It's not bad unless the Vikings are playing Detroit or something. Of course, I don't have any Detroit fans in my family, so it doesn't matter. So they'll actually cheer for the Vikings then. But all the Justin Jefferson trade talks need to stop. Yes, Joe, if I had a prize, I would give you the prize for that because I am so sick and tired of this. And you're seeing all these stupid, idiotic trade scenarios. Oh, Vikings give up Justin Jefferson and a first-round pick, and we give them a half-eaten bologna sandwich and a bag of stale chips. Who says no? Anybody with a half-functioning fucking brain says no. The Vikings have come out and said they're not trading Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson has not given any indication that he wants out. I do believe that Jefferson is going to wait until after the draft to see what the quarterback situation is before he puts pen to paper. But I think he signs, and he signed shortly after the draft before training camp. So I'm not concerned with it. The only way that trade even happens is if they get to a point where Jefferson wants $38 million a year or something like that, and then they're going to have to, make a decision at that point. Albert Breer, Patriots not showing interest in moving off pick 3. Of course, they're not going to show interest in moving off pick 3 because one of two things: either they're trying to drive up the price for somebody who wants to get to pick 3, or there is already a handshake deal in place with the Vikings to make that, again, pending Jaden Daniels not being there for him at 3, kind of a thing. Patriots fans think they should get Justin Jefferson and our first rounders for 3. Yeah, I saw that. And it makes no sense whatsoever. You would have to give me more than pick 3 for me to even consider moving Justin Jefferson. I mean, you're looking at a couple of number 1s, a 2, and a 3 or 4 or something like that to even get me to listen. Unless we know for a fact that we're not going to be able to re-sign him, then of course, then your asking price goes down a little bit, but it's not something that I don't think that the team doesn't want to do it. I don't think Justin Jefferson wants to leave. He's a professional. He knows this is a business. He knows how things go, but he wants to see for himself what the Vikings plan is going forward. And I'm sure he's been involved, or they brought him in and told him what they're looking at, who they're looking at. It's just they don't know until draft night who they're going to get, or if something happens, they may say Drake May is their number 1 target. The Commanders surprise everybody and take Drake May at number 2. Then New England takes Daniels at 3. Then the Vikings have got to deal with Atlanta at 4 to go get JJ McCarthy or something. It's unless you can move up to 2 or 3 ahead of the draft, it's still going to be a question mark on how this is going to fall out. But the intrigue and the interest in all this is listen, I love this shit. I've had more fun in free agency the past week than I've had in years. So tell them to send me what they're smoking. Yeah. Patriots threw Mac Jones in early and destroyed his career. Now they want to do it again. To be fair, I was never high on Mac Jones to begin with. I didn't think he was going to be a good quarterback coming out of Alabama. And, I know there were people that wanted the Vikings to take him when his turn came around. I know that Kyle Shanahan wanted him in San Francisco. Now, could Kyle Shanahan have made something out of him? Possibly. But, it's hard to say. Maybe he'll resurrect his career. He'll be a backup for a year or 2 down in Jacksonville, and somebody else will sign him, and he'll turn into a serviceable quarterback someplace. I don't know. The only team I would answer the phone for a Justin Jefferson trade is the Bengals. Higgins, a 1 and a 2 at minimum. Even then, I'm not even doing it for that. Nope. Trade 11, 23, and next year's first to get your quarterback. Drive for excellence, confidence in the future. We want a top tier. It's time it happens. Absolutely, Joe. Joe, you're coming in firing with the comments tonight. Well done, sir. And I think that's probably what it's going to take to get to. I know it would take that to get to 2. You might be able to work it out for the 2 number 1s this year and a 3 next year. That was the kind of the conspiracy theory that happened after the KJ Osborne signing. One thing I think that and this is just a thought I had this afternoon. Of course, we've got the whole Atlanta Falcons tampering thing going on. The league is going to have to make a ruling on that. Probably in the next couple of weeks. And it's not unprecedented. Now, Atlanta could be as severe as Atlanta loses their first overall pick, which again would move the Vikings from 11 and 23 to 10 and 22. But there's also precedence for picks being forced to be swapped between the teams involved in this. And I've seen this theory out there. Now, if they take the 8th overall pick away from Atlanta, they're not just going to give it to us. That's not how it works. But there is a possibility that they could say, okay, Atlanta and Minnesota, you're swapping first-round picks. Because apparently the teams can negotiate a settlement for this tampering thing. So the Vikings could say, hey, instead of you losing your first-round pick altogether, swap us 8 and 23, and we'll call it good. We can all move on with our lives. So if you go from 11 and 23 to 8 and 11, you probably aren't going to have to give up much else to go up there to 2 or 3. So there might be some of that that's holding this back. Now, again, it's just a random thought that came off my head, but it's possible. AJ, good evening. So, I'm not going to rule anything out yet. Is that a plausible scenario? I don't know. Again, I don't know all the legal ramifications. Stuff about. I mean, like I said, there is precedent for a lot of this. For losing a first-round pick, Miami Dolphins lost a couple of years ago with the tampering for both Sean Payton and Tom Brady. There's been multiple times where teams have had to swap third-round picks or something like that. We don't have a third-round pick this year, so they'd have to come up with something. We don't have a second-round pick anymore either, so even taking the pick away turns ours into a top 10. It does. Swap 8 for 23. That would be my solution. I go to Atlanta and say, here, you know what? Let's make this all go away. You give us 8, we'll give you 23. You get to keep a first-round pick. Yeah, it's not where you were, but you're going to have to pay some sort of a penalty for this. I mean, swapping 8 and 11 doesn't seem like a serious enough punishment for the situation. So I would push for 8 and 23 if it was me. But again, I don't know if that's even an option. I've heard there's a ton of stuff going back and forth about it, so it's possible. What's about JJ turning down $30 million a year? That's the report that they made a contract offer to Justin Jefferson for $30 million here, not too awful long ago, right after the season was over. I don't know if he turned it down because it was the overall dollars that weren't as high. I think he wants to be paid, the highest paid non-quarterback in the league, which he has earned that. So you'd have to get above 32 to get past Bosa. So, 32.5, 33, that I can see is where Jefferson slots in. And I've also heard that maybe it was something with guaranteed money that he didn't necessarily care for. The one thing I've noticed, he'll easily be over Tyreek Hill, Robert. That's not a problem. But I've heard, and we've seen something, Kwesi's not as free to hand out all that guaranteed money that Spielman was in the past. Kwesi has done a masterful job of cleaning up those old contracts and getting us to where we had cap space this year to make signings in free agency that didn't come from the $5 movie bin at Walmart. To next year having over $150 million in effective cap space, at least at this point. Anybody that says we should trade away our first pick next year smoking crack, we wouldn't have a pick till the 3rd round. Then put me on for smoking crack, Nick, because if it takes that to go up and get your quarterback, then I'm doing it. I don't care. I'm doing it. Again, I've said this over and over. If the guy you go get pans out, nobody's going to care or nobody's going to remember how much you gave up to get him because you finally got that guy. The guy we have not truly had since at least Tommy Kramer, back to Fran Tarkenton. Dante could have been there maybe, but with an injury it didn't pan out. Joe, should Dalton Reisner be re-signed? I would like to see Reisner brought in. Now, again, with him, there may be something with that potential deal with the compensatory picks. The Vikings may have told him, we'd like to have you back, but we can't do it right now. If you can get more money, if you get a contract or something someplace else, great, do what's best for you. But maybe once the draft is over and we hit that April 29th part that is the deadline for compensatory calculations, I could easily see them bringing him back in after the draft. Maybe they have a guy that they like that falls in their lap. They did sign a couple of guards in there. The Feeney guy and played for Chicago and a couple other places, and Blake Brandel. They actually paid Blake Brandel pretty good money to come in, so I think he's their insurance policy at starter at the very least. I don't know that I like the idea of Blake Brandel being a full-time starter, but I think it's that's their backup plan, I believe, anyway. Trading at 5 is the best option. I don't know that 5 is going to do it, Ann, because if you're at 5, the Giants are at 6, and if you do, you can't trade to 5 ahead of the draft, because all the Giants would have to do would be jump up 2 spots to 4 with Arizona, take McCarthy out from underneath you, and you're sitting there at 5 with no quarterback. If you're going to trade up to 5, you're going to be wait until draft night and see how the board starts falling before you make that trade. But I don't know that the Vikings are going to want to get up to a spot where they're comfortable. You get to 4, you're guaranteed to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks as long as you're okay with them all, with all 4 of those guys. I think 4 is your probable floor that you have to get to. Now, there is a possibility that Arizona is going to say, we're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick 4. We're not trading out. This is the guy we want. This is the guy we're taking. Quick calling. Then 5 is an option. But Giants like Harrison. Everybody likes Harrison. I mean, he's the top wide receiver in this draft. Would like to improve in the draft on the O-line. The biggest concern I have, and with the Reisner thing notwithstanding, is at center. I'm not content with Garrett Bradbury being our starting center. And we can get out from underneath Bradbury's contract fairly easily, even this year, if we happen to draft a center, or, like I said, bring in a Connor McGovern or somebody like that later on. It's not cost prohibitive to move on from Garrett Bradbury, or you keep him as a backup to for this year and then move on from after this year. There's so many different options out there. It's hard to, there's a multitude of ways they can go, and it all hinges around first what they're going to do at the quarterback position. Gary, good evening. Disgusting Act, good evening. Have a hard time seeing Arizona moving. If they move, it's because the Pats took Harrison, and if that's the case, Mayer Daniels are still on the board. Yeah. I mean, quarterback, I think quarterbacks are going to go. I think there's a very good chance quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4. I do. Now, is it possible that the whole quarterback thing with New England is a smokescreen and they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr.? Sure it is. They could. But Skull for Life, good evening. But, with that, I think they're going to, the thing of it is, does New England think that they are ready to compete with a rookie quarterback in their division? You've got the Buffalo Bills in there who, of course, are the Buffalo Bills. They've been top of the division ever since Tom Brady left. You got the Dolphins, who have been very good. Mike McDaniel's got a good team down there. They got to fight with those guys. And then the Jets are going to have Aaron Rodgers back and healthy supposedly at least this year. So they're still probably looking at third or fourth in that division. So good evening, Brian. Skol from Tampa. Skol from Fargo. Titans like Levis and the Broncos can't move up. Broncos can move up. They can't move up that high. The Giants, they don't have to make that great of an offer, Ant. They're picking at 6 to 4. It could, because if you look at it, I mean, I think if the Chargers stay at their pick and Harrison's there, I think they would take him. Now, Arizona could flip from 4 to 6 easy enough, and you're still getting a Malik Neighbors, a Roma Dunze, somebody like that, one of the offensive tackles. Good evening, Zone. But I don't think there's any risk of the Chargers taking a quarterback, but 4 is that sweet spot, and it's in a spot where the Giants most definitely can jump up there and swipe them out for money. So you can't just risk hanging around till 5 and expecting somebody to be there. We've been aggressive to this point. You're gonna have to stay aggressive. You're gonna have to make that jump, and you're gonna have to do what you need to do to get up there. And I think the only thing right now that's off the board as far as the Vikings go is Justin Jefferson. They're not going to trade Justin Jefferson. So it's that is what it is. I mean, it's Rich Hill chart. We can trade the chart yet. And you can't just go off the Rich Hill chart. I mean, the Rich Hill chart is not the be all end all anymore. There's been a combination of stuff. You got the Belichick variant, and you've got some of this other stuff. And just because the chart says so doesn't mean you have to take this as a trade offer because the chart says this. You're going to pay a premium because they know you're going up to get a quarterback. You may have to pay a premium because somebody else is sitting over there. If, say, we get through the first 3 picks and we haven't been able to trade up, we're trying to trade with Atlanta. Atlanta's going to have us on the phone in this hand, and on this hand they're going to have the Giants on the phone, and they're going to be playing them back and forth. So you're going to have to overpay from what the chart says. But if you're doing it to get a quarterback, you do it. I don't care what it costs. Product Kwesi for standing up to Moneybags. Yeah, make moves to acquire a new top 3 quarterback in the draft. Need to shoot the shot. Go for the gusto. Time for new blood. Yep. I mean, it's a new day. It's a new regime. Well, it's the same regime, but newer regime. Disgusting act. I would like number 8, please. Kyle Pitts is not about the dollars. What the dollars represent. For those of you who didn't know, Kirk Cousins will not be number 8 in Atlanta. He will be number 18 apparently because Kyle Pitts has number 8. And when you're the unicorn, you get what you want, I guess, even if versus the $180 million quarterback. Either that or Kirk was too cheap to pay for it. I don't know what the situation. Again, it's Atlanta. Kirk's not our problem anymore. And like Lance and I said on Friday, we're going to keep the Kirk Cousins discussion to a minimum and try not to talk about it at all. But, there's still some residual, so it is what it is. But anyway, guys, I've been going on here for about an hour and 10 minutes, and my voice is starting to crack up on me here a little bit. So last call for any comments in the chat that we want to hit really quick. And if nothing else, really feel KOC will develop with success. I think so too, Joe. I believe it, and that's why we brought Kevin O'Connell in here, because he's a quarterback, because we had the belief that he can be that guy to develop our future franchise quarterback. So here's his opportunity. Let's get it done. But with that, guys, I'm going to call it a night, go crack myself a beer, have some dinner, and sit down and relax for a little bit. But again, shout out to all you guys in the chat. We've been going for over an hour here already. We still have 75 people in the chat. hit that like and subscribe when you go out the door if you have not done so already. It helps us out a ton. I want to thank you guys. The views and the interaction is going up and up every week here. Really appreciate all the new people coming in and the old. Thank you guys so very much. Make sure you go out and check out all the other Vikings content creators out there with their YouTube shows and their Facebook feeds and everything else. There's a ton of them out there. They all put out good shows, good information, and we're one big family here as Vikings fans. All we want is to see the Vikings succeed and finally go out and get that elusive Lombardi trophy that we can put in our trophy case. So again, thank you guys so very much for joining tonight. Really appreciate it. Love these live shows. Shout out to the Filipino fan club halfway across the world over in the Philippines. Noi, Nympha, Sam, Jen, Vivi, Wilma, all you guys over there that I know watch every week. Thank you very much. We've got people in Argentina. We've got people in Europe, Canada, Vikings Uncensored worldwide. We're having a great time doing this. Brunswick's Best should be back this week. That's our plan anyway on Wednesday. And live studio show once again, Saturday night this week. We will get all the latest on what's going on with the potential move up, all the rumors, all the news, all the fun. Make sure you join us for that. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining. You guys have a great rest of your Monday, and we will see you Saturday night.